Hello, everybody, and welcome to Finding the Guardian of Your Soul. I'm Lisa Shield, and I am a love coach of over 20 years and counting. I met my husband, the guardian of my soul, online in the very early days of online dating. And since then, I have helped hundreds of women find the true love their heart desires online as well. And so if you are struggling, if you're having a tough time, if you don't understand why it's working for other women and not you, then stick around because today we are going to talk about respect versus love, mastering the art of captivating a man's heart. So this is going to trigger some of you. I know it. Before I even get into this subject, some of you are going to say things like, well, why should I have to tiptoe around a man's feelings? And why do men have to be so sensitive? And I can hear all of the comments now. And what I will say to you is this. Men are just as sensitive as women are. Men have needs just like women do. This goes for both sexes, and the more we can understand the opposite sex and meet in the middle, the better our relationships will be. So I don't see this as tiptoeing around a man's feelings, and I don't see this as me trying to bend myself to a man and be a pretzel. I think that this is a beautiful, loving, kind, respectful way to be with anybody, man or woman. It just happens to work especially well with men. The women who do my 12-week program will say, Lisa, I use these techniques on everybody. I use them at work, especially with my male colleagues. And I can't tell you what a difference it makes because I'm finally getting the responses from men that I've always wanted, even from their male children. But it'll work on your girlfriends as well. It'll work on everybody in your life. And if you do adopt some of these techniques, then you are going to improve your communication with everybody in your life. So let's go back to men and women and dating because that's really the topic of this broadcast, this podcast. So I have a question for you. Do you think a man would rather feel alone and unloved or respected? So would a man rather feel alone and unloved or respected? And it might surprise you to know that most men equate respect with love. So when they feel disrespected, they feel unloved. So you can say to a man, I love you, and you may truly feel that way. But if you don't respect him, if you're talking to him in ways that show disrespect, a man will not feel loved by you, no matter what you say to him. Respect is the single most important thing any woman can give a man. Now, if you truly do not respect a man, then you do not want to be with that man. It will erode the relationship. You'll constantly be saying and doing things that will convey your disrespect. And little by little, he's not going to trust you. He'll pull away. He will not share himself with you. He won't open up to you. A lot of women, and I really want those of you who constantly attract emotionally unavailable men to really stop and think about this. Are you creating a safe and loving and respectful space for a man to open up to you? Are you creating a safe, loving, respectful environment for a man to open up to you? If a man feels disrespected, he will stop sharing himself with you. If you're too masculine, he will not share himself with you. Why? Because he's going to be met with your male energy, no matter how pretty you are, no matter how low cut your cleavage is, he is not going to open up and share his inner emotional world with you if he's met with masculine energy, because men don't open up to other men. They just don't. It is not safe for men to share their emotions, their inner emotional worlds with other men. They're discouraged from doing that. Highly alpha males are seen as weak and sissies, and they're seen as girls when they do that with other men. And so men, by and large, do not open up and share their their feelings with other men. So if you are exuding masculine energy, a man will not open up to you. So there are all kinds of things that women inadvertently say or do that make men feel disrespected. How can you tell that a man feels like you don't respect him? It's really, really, really simple. He's going to get short with you. He's going to get angry with you. So here's kind of a paradox. And this is something that I notice with women. It's something that I decided when I was dating that I did not want to do this. I didn't think it was a very attractive thing. As women, we have a lot of double standards. We want men to cater to us and to do the things that we need from men, but at the same time, we have double standards. We think, well, men should be men and they should suck it up, and a masculine man doesn't care about certain things. It's almost like many women don't think men have feelings. We want them to share their feelings, but we then equate being an alpha male, with not getting bent out of shape over things and so there's this paradox with men. There is a book called Love and Respect. The author of that book says that in relationship conflict, crying is often a woman's response to feeling unloved. So when a couple is arguing or fighting, a woman will often cry because she feels like a man is being unloving with her. But here's the paradox. Anger is a man's response to feeling disrespected. They get angry and they get short with us. So in the middle of a conflict, a man might not be able to articulate why he's feeling upset, but if he's getting angry with you, you can pretty much assume that you said or did something that triggered his feelings of being disrespected. Now, a lot of women don't realize that they can be extremely direct and critical, and men feel disrespected when they're talked to this way or talked down to or lectured or nagged, and they will get short with you. They will get angry with you. They will shut down. And that is their response to feeling disrespected, even if what you're saying is true. You could be saying something true, but the way you're saying it makes him feel like a little boy, or like he's being talked down to, or that you don't think he's capable of, figuring things out on his own. And if he gets short with you, it's usually because you have triggered his feelings of being disrespected. So many women think it's okay to cry if they're arguing with a man, but those same women would say it's not okay for a man to get angry. So here's the catch, right? The double standard. Women require unconditional love. Many women feel that, the men that they're with should just love them the way they are unconditionally. Well, in the same way, men require unconditional respect. So I really want you to hear that. Women require unconditional love in the same way men require unconditional respect. So many women think that love should be unconditional, but respect should be earned. Most women think that love should be unconditional, but respect should be earned. And for men, that's not the case. They want to be treated with respect. So sometimes we're not being our best selves, right? But we still think a man should love and accept us and understand that maybe we're having a bad day or maybe we're hormonal, right? Or whatever. But a man should understand that and respect us even when we're not, and love us even when we're not our best selves. Well, women need to respect men even when they're not meeting their expectations at that moment. So I know that this is really hard. It must, I'm sure a lot of you listening are getting triggered because these beliefs, these ideas are really challenging some long held beliefs that you have. But you have to understand respect is the same for a man as love is for a woman. So let's talk about some ways that you can demonstrate your respect for the men in your life. Okay, so there's lots of ways that you can go on dates and you can really show men that you respect them. You don't have to agree with them. So here's the most incredible thing about this. You do not have to agree with somebody to be respectful. You do not have to agree with a man to be respectful of him, to treat him with respect. So agreeing and respect are not the same things. You can see, you may think that being a guitarist is not a respectful career, but you can still respect that man's dream. Does that make sense? If that is somebody's dream and he dreams of playing the guitar, maybe he loves just going out on the streets and putting an open guitar case in front of him and playing on the streets and making money that way. And that is his passion. Whether or not you want to marry, a busker, a street musician, that's another story. But you can still respect someone's dream without agreeing that that's a viable career, right? So let's talk about some ways that you can respect a man. You can show respect. The first is you need to respect his ideas and opinions, again, even if you disagree with him. So men are all about values and principles. If you ask a man for his input, he's not just giving you his opinion about something. He's telling you who he is and what he stands for. And this is just at the heart of what makes a man a man. So women love to ask a man's input, and then they start to question, well, why do you think that? Why did you say that? I don't know if I agree. They start to challenge that man's perspective. You don't have to agree with it, but you do need to understand that if a man gives you his input, he's not just going to give you one perspective 1 minute and another perspective another minute. Most men have one perspective on something. They don't do what women do. They don't sit there and go, well, it could be this. They don't speculate. They give you a very firm opinion or perspective, And that's their perspective. If I say to my husband, Benjamin, well, why do you feel that way? Or can you tell me more about that? And he will say to me, you asked my opinion. I gave it to you. That's all I've got. I don't have 20 other perspectives. I can't sit here and speculate with you. You ask me what I think. I'm telling you what I think. Now, he doesn't expect me to just say, oh, okay, I guess that's the way it is, right? He doesn't have a monopoly on the truth, but he's giving me his perspective, which is what I asked for. If I question it, he is going to get short with me because it makes him feel like I think he's stupid and that he doesn't know what he's talking about. Now, a perspective can just be a perspective. You don't have to agree or disagree. It doesn't have to be an argument. But if you really want to make a man feel respected, you would say, thank you for sharing your perspective. Now, if you want to know more, it is very important how you ask about that. So you do not want to say, well, why do you think that? Because that sounds like you're questioning his perspective. A man will be happy to share more. If you're curious and you want to know more, you might say, wow, I hadn't thought about it that way. I would love to, if you could give me more insight or help me understand where you're coming from. So you're not questioning what he's sharing. You're trying to gain a deeper understanding. And a man would appreciate you really probing and being open to knowing more, as long as you're not questioning his theory or his perspective. Could you tell me more about that? I'm really curious. I'd love to understand how you arrived at that conclusion. Please help me understand where you're coming from. So that's very different than, why do you think that? So you must be very careful the words that you use, the way you inquire, and your tone of voice. Another way that you can show respect to men are to respect his abilities. Men need to figure things out on their own, right? They love to fix things. They'll take things apart and put them back together. When we don't let them do that and we try to help, it makes them think that we don't think they're capable of figuring it out and that we don't trust them to do it on their own. Men want us to believe in their abilities. Now, you may have a guy that's struggling. Maybe he took the toaster apart and he can't put it back together. But you standing there and saying, well, why don't you take it to the shop now? I told you to take it to the shop, but you had to take it apart. That's not going to score you points. And it's really going to hurt your man's self-esteem. Instead, you might say, wow, thank you so much for trying, for doing that. I so appreciate you taking this apart and trying to fix it. I really admire that you did that. Now that's going to make the guy feel great. He's smart enough. He knows he might need to get online and do a little Googling to try to figure out how to put it back together, or that he may need to call a friend or whatever. You don't need to tell him that. He can figure those things out on his own, or he may just need to go and buy another toaster. But a grown man is going to figure it out. He doesn't need you to tell him. These are wonderful opportunities, in the same way that you want a man to tell you how amazing you are, how beautiful, to buy you flowers, to plan surprises. There's all kinds of things that women love men to do for them. My husband hates surprises. He doesn't need me to plan, a night out on the town for him. That is not an exciting thing. He does those things for me. But there are things that he can do for me that I love. He's got my birthday planned. It's not until August. He knows I love it when he plans my birthday. So, he's got that all handled. And I don't have to tell him. I don't have to remind him, hey, did you make plans for my birthday? He's got that covered. So men, a great example of this is when you tell a man to ask for directions, what you're essentially telling him is that you don't trust him to figure it out on his own. So if you really want to have some fun with this, even if you've been driving in circles for hours, you can just tell him, I know you've got this. I totally believe in you. You're going to figure this out, and sit back and enjoy the ride instead of getting bent out of shape or trying to, get flustered or pull out your phone and start, asking Siri how to get there. Unless he asks for your help, just say, you know what, babe, you're going to get this. I know it. You're going to figure this out. But let him figure it out. As women, we don't always need to be in control. And sometimes, they're going to mess it up or get it wrong, but they need to know that we believe in them. And these are actually opportunities for us to do that, especially when they're struggling, is for us to express how much we believe in them and know that they're going to figure it out, because that's what makes them want to figure it out, because they want to be our heroes and they want to impress us. So another one is to respect his accomplishments. So when a man tells you about something he's done, it's usually because he's proud of what he's accomplished and he's trying to impress you. And you need to be impressed, even if you don't think it's impressive. Don't criticize him, even if you think you could have done it better. Little comments, like, oh my God, you handled that situation with your boss so well. I'm really proud of you, are going to go a long way to making him feel respected. So build your guy up, build him up. I mean, my husband does this for me all the time. He is so supportive, and especially when he sees me struggling with something. He is constantly not criticizing me, not telling me how to fix it, but he comes in and he says, wow, I love your tenacity. You really work hard. You really stick with things, and I'm so proud of you. I really admire that. Imagine how that feels to a man to hear those things. He does that for me because I know he loves it when I do it for him. He's been struggling a little bit in his practice. It was a little bit down recently here in Santa Fe, and he's been getting all these new calls from clients, and he comes in and he'll say, I got a new client today, or I got 3 new clients. And I'm like, I get so excited for him. And he just looks at me, he beams, he lights up, and he's like, thank you, babe. And it makes him so happy for me to be excited for him and not just go, oh, that's great, or oh, good. I get really, really genuinely excited for him. And I love to see the expression on his face because it makes him feel respected. So another one, and this is to me one of the most important things of all, is to communicate with a man respectfully. So it really upsets a man when we mother them or when we nag them. They don't want to be treated like little boys. I was once coaching a couple, and there was this big guy, big, strong guy. I think he had been a former gang member, to be honest. And he looked at his wife in the middle of the session, And he said, look, I got one mother and I don't need another one. And that's how most men feel. So if you do want to, give a man advice or direction, instead of saying, you should go see a chiropractor about that pain in your back, you may want to ask him, have you considered seeing a chiropractor? And let him, that way he thinks it's his idea. Have you considered, or, would you consider, or may I ask you what you've tried already? So you don't want to assume that he hasn't tried these things. You want to make sure that you respect that this is a grown man. He can think for himself. He can figure things out on his own. Another thing that is so important when you're speaking to a man is not to interrupt him. Do not interrupt a man when he is talking. It is not a good idea. I am going to pause for a second. All right, I'm back. So, do not interrupt men. It is not a good thing. First of all, it's disrespectful to interrupt anybody when they're talking. But when a woman interrupts a man, it is incredibly disrespectful, and they often lose their train of thought. Men are one track minded. They get on a topic, and the minute you interrupt them, they lose their focus. Women have this ability to bookmark something and go off on 20 different tangents and then come back to the original point. With a man, if he is talking on a subject and you interrupt him, he forgets what you were talking about and he goes to the next topic. And that's completely out of his mind. So you cannot bounce around with men. Men will often say women don't think linearly. They think in circles. They're all over the place. I've had men say this to me in the past, and it was something I really had to learn how to monitor, was how to stick with one subject. Or if I did change the subject, I would say, babe, forgive me for a moment. There's something I forgot to tell you. And I will say that thing and come right back to the original subject. But it is very, very disorienting when you interrupt a man because they forget the topic. So do not interrupt them. Now, there is a situation that many of you have encountered, and that's being on a date with a man who won't stop talking. And you do have to interrupt him because he won't shut up, and he keeps talking and talking and talking and talking, and your eyes are glazing over and you want to say something and there's no room for you to interject a thought. If that happens, then you say, excuse me, may I pause you for a moment? Now, this is something you can use with anybody. It's a wonderful technique. You can use it with anyone, but excuse me, may I pause you for a second? And then you can share whatever it is you want to share. Unfortunately, I am in my house. My office is being remodeled. And so, talk about changing subjects. I have two barking dogs in the other room. So, excuse me if I pause for a moment and I deal with the dog. The last one is, and this is ginormous, ginormous. Women do not realize they do this. And it is so awful for men when this happens. Treat him with respect in front of others. So, one of the worst things a woman can do is talk down to a man in front of other people. It is excruciating for him. So, women often do this by sharing silly little things that we think are cute that he may have said or done. And men find this humiliating. So be careful of putting a man down, especially in front of other men and especially in front of his work colleagues. This is one of the worst things you can possibly do with a man. So do not belittle men in front of friends, family, and especially colleagues and other men. It is so painful that men will break off a relationship because of this. They will tell themselves, I'm not going to sign up for this for the rest of my life. So if you really want a man to adore you, let's say he takes you to meet his friends or his family. If you want to score mega points with a guy, praise him in front of his family and friends. Talk about what a wonderful man he is. Talk about how you've never met such a wonderful father, that you admire the way he treats his kids. Talk about how thoughtful he is, how intelligent, whatever. Find something wonderful and praise him in front of the people that he cares about, or even in front of your friends, because it really builds them up and it shows respect. And men love this. So if you meet a guy that you're dating and you really want to, if you really want to score points, and he takes you to, a barbecue or an event or whatever, say a few really complimentary things about what a great guy he is. And oh my gosh, this man will adore you. So men don't let their guard down easily. They don't. And these subtle ways that we show disrespect, men are very keyed into these things. This is something you really need to know. Men are very keyed into this. So in the same way that when we're on dates and we hear them talking poorly about their exes, or there's certain things that men say and do that we're like, no way, not interested. When we show disrespect towards them, when they share their dreams, when they share their ideas and they feel disrespected, you may never hear from that guy again and wonder why, even though you thought the date went really well. The only person a man will ever be completely open with is the woman he loves. The only person a man will ever be completely open with is the woman he loves. So when you respect a man, when you learn the art of showing a man that you respect him, you will have the kind of emotionally naked relationship most women can only ever dream of. Now, my mother was so cutting with my father. It was almost painful for me to hear the kinds of things she said about him. Now, whether he was a good guy or a not so good guy, I can only imagine how it felt for my father to have my mother talk to him and about him the way that she did. And I vowed that I was not going to do that. It was just horrible. One day, my husband, Benjamin, said one of the kindest things any man has ever said to me. And it was one of the greatest compliments I've ever received from a man. He said, I don't think there's anything I haven't told you. And if I haven't told it to you, it's only because I haven't thought of it yet. To have a grown man, a man that I respect and admire, say that to me, that he could feel that comfortable opening up and sharing anything, everything with me. And he just said that out of the blue. It wasn't in a perfect moment. He was just sitting and he thought, and he was looking around, and then he looked at me and he said, I don't think there's anything I haven't told you. And that was the most beautiful thing, to think that a man, a real man, would open up and share his whole world with me, that I was the kind of woman that he felt he could do that with me. So just imagine what it will feel like when your man says something like that to you. So practice showing respect. You don't have to ever see a man again, but practice just listening, being curious, not getting upset, not challenging them. And yes, it's okay to disagree with a man. A man doesn't mind, but they don't want you to make them wrong. You can hear a man's opinion and say, wow, that's an interesting perspective. I hadn't thought about that. I see it very differently. But it doesn't have to be a fight. You don't have to butt heads and make him wrong. That's a big one. I used to be incredibly argumentative with men. I once had a boyfriend, a former boyfriend, literally walking backwards out the door saying, leave me alone. I can't talk about this anymore, because I was so argumentative. I would often ask his opinion just so I could prove him wrong. And I would say, oh, yeah, okay, just so I could give my perspective and be right. And that was not attractive or sexy. So learn how to share your opinions, learn how to agree to disagree. Two people can have very different opinions and both be right. Our clients, when Benjamin and I do Q&A calls together, we often see things differently. And he will often say, when he's sharing his feedback on a call to a woman's question, he'll often say, you're going to get a very different perspective from Lisa, or a very different opinion. And our clients will often say to us, it's great to watch the two of you, how you both can see things so differently and not argue about things, which is really true. We sometimes have different opinions or different perspectives, and neither one of us tries to be right or make the other one wrong. We just both state our viewpoints, and that's it. And we leave it and we move on. So doesn't, you don't have to argue and fight. Two different perspectives can coexist simultaneously. So learn how to show respect for men, and you will start to see men opening up, getting emotionally naked. Great men will share their hearts with you, and you will have your choice of some extraordinary men. I'm Lisa Shield, and this has been Finding the Guardian of Your Soul. Thank you so much to everyone who watched today. Please come back and see us again soon. I do a separate broadcast under the same podcast title with my husband, where I get inside his male mind. It's called Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. Benjamin has a beautiful mind, and this is an excuse for me to share him with all of you, because I love his perspective on things so much. And he is such a wonderful, healthy, masculine man. And I love when he shares his perspective, because I feel like he expresses himself so beautifully. So please tune in for that as well. Sign up for our mailing list. You will get announcements of all of our podcast episodes, and tell everyone you know about this broadcast. You can go to lisashield.com if you want to work with us, and you can click the button all over my website to watch my free presentation. If you like what you hear, you can sign up for a free breakthrough call with a member of my team, and that's where we'll explain everything you need to know about how you can coach with us and find the guardian of your soul. Finally, if you have suggestions for future topics, please send them to podcast@lisashield.com. And I'm Lisa Shield. Thank you for joining me. Have a beautiful rest of your day.